The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of 𝗕𝗂𝗵𝗵𝗏 and Ronnie.
Accident or injury, call Jacob and Ronnie. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason along with Sue 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. This is the show where we talk about everything happening in the world of pop culture. And this is our Sugar Watch-Along series. We're going to do episode 5 today. Got a really cool guest, Nate Corddry, who plays the unbelievably creepy Davey, who meets his demise in episode 5.
David.
Oh, right, David. His mom wants you to call him David.
But she kept on calling him Davey to him, and then corrected Sugar this episode when he said Davey, but she kept on going back and forth like she still calls him Davey.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, boy, she's a creep. She's creepy.
Oh, boy.
She's like some sort of mother in a crime family. So Sugar episode 5. We'll talk to Nate about the Davey storyline, or the David Siegel storyline. But first, I want to get to this sort of big society or group that he's with, that Ruby is sort of the boss of. And she says something's going on with Sugar. There's a worry that this case might lead him to come across things. What do you think is going on with this big secret society that Sugar is part of?
I think that he's going to find out what he really is, or what he was. It just makes me think that, did they create him? Is he undead? Is he like Bella in Poor Things? Or is he AI? Because all this stuff came out in this episode about, he started talking about traffic. He never talked about traffic before. So is he starting to realize things about himself that he's maybe putting some pieces together? Like he knows something?
Yeah.
Something like, are things familiar with him now? The weird thing about when Melanie came back to his hotel room.
Yes.
To stay over, where he was protecting her. And he comes out of the room and he doesn't have pants on. And they don't have this intimate relationship.
Right.
And he just was like business as usual. I just took my pants off.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really strange.
There are superhuman things that he's doing. This is a little thing, but when first of all, there's the whole confrontation with the guy who is with Melanie, right? Mm-hmm. And at one point, he backs up that car so fast and backs perfectly parallel. I'm like, no, see, this is another superhuman thing that he's able. Like, I at 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, I cannot parallel park. And this guy's doing it at 30 miles an hour. And when he's punching that guy and he doesn't know when to stop, and there's almost like a sort of mechanical punching, that feels like, and again, this kind of leads into that AI theory, or I've seen now the alien theory is popular.
Right.
Which is also out there. The one thing I love this one quote, and this kind of goes to your last point. He said, "Tip the world on its side, and every loose thing lands in Los Angeles." And then he says, "Maybe I've been here too long."
Yes. And he says, is that what's happening? Is this town turning me upside down? He said, that wasn't me.
Yeah. So there's some twist coming. There's something coming. So as we go along here, we want to welcome to the show Nate Corddry, He has starred in the NBC legal drama Harry's Law, the hit comedy Mom, Aaron Sorkin's Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. His IMDb page goes on and on and on. But he joins us here to talk about 𝗕𝗲 episode 5. Nate, thanks a lot for coming on, man.
My great pleasure. Any opportunity to talk to anyone about 𝗕𝗲, I'm very excited to do so. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm so glad we got you for this show because you're so good in 𝗕𝗲, and especially in this episode. I mean, just congratulations.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was, you sign on for a TV show. It's different from a film. A film is written and completed, and you know where the character, the beginning, the middle, and the end. But television, you don't get all the scripts, usually. Sometimes you do with a limited series if there's only a few episodes. But this show, they were sort of writing as they were shooting, sort of I think to adapt the scripts to the characters to the actors that were playing the characters. So I went in for my screen test with Fernando, the director, after I had the job, just to test what lights, looked appropriate with me and my skin. And he said, "Oh yeah, episode 5 is great. It's all kinds of stuff going on in episode 5. This happens and this happens." I was like, oh, great. Okay, there's stuff to look forward to. I had one script to go on. But when Colin Farrell and Fernando Meirelles are attached, you say yes, even if you haven't read the script. So it was an awesome job. And I'm so glad you guys are enjoying it. And thank you for the compliment.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. Because of the nature of the show as an actor, how much do you know? So is it really script by script? Like, do you not know where your character was heading? Right.
In this instance, yes. I mean, pretty much every show that I've been on, sometimes if the creator has things mapped out, they'll give you an idea, but things can always change, like based on sort of like real life stuff. Like if a location changes and instead of shooting at the front of a restaurant, you're shooting in the back, you have to start changing the script to match the location or the actor drops out, you have a new actor. So sometimes you have an idea, but most of the time it's just sort of like Christmas morning when it used to be before email deliveries, a PA would drop a hard copy of a script off at your front door. My first job in Los Angeles was an Aaron Sorkin series called Studio 60.
Oh yeah, a great show, great underrated series.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes, and the scripts would show up at 4 a.m, and I'd hear like a boom. I was like, oh my God, I get out of bed and run to the door and open it. And it was Christmas and I'd pour through it. Where am I going this week? Who am I this time? So you never really know. And I so lucked out. I lucked out with this job and the character sort of expanded and evolved. And I had a lot of, as you see in episode 5, a lot of meaty stuff to chew on. And it was I feel really grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, you play Davey or David, depending on if you're talking to his mom or not. David, former child star, turned into this awful guy, this sleazy, sexual blackmail, and it's all becoming public. And I would think as an actor, this is just really fun for you to play, right?
It is, especially someone like me who has sort of like a round, kind-ish face. I don't get to play a lot of treacherous characters. And when I do, it's always kind of it's cleverly casted because it comes as a bit of a surprise that it's not so arch. I don't appear on the screen and the audience doesn't make an association with my face saying, okay, bad guy. So when things get to turn and I get to sort of push towards those darker spaces, it's really fun because it's rare. I just don't get the opportunity to do that often. But so when I do, I feel more anxious about it because I'm pushing a part of my ability that is acting's a muscle. And so when you're doing it a lot, the muscle is very flexible. But this is a character that was sort of outside of my typical box. So I had a lot of anxiety going into shooting the big scenes in episode 5. But thankfully, Fernando was directing. There isn't a better director I've worked with. Generous, kind, forgiving to actors, accepting, collaborative. Cesar, his DP, is shooting along with the camera operators, and he's such an auteur. These guys are proper cinematic artists. If you've seen City of God, you know what I mean.
Oh, City of God's amazing movie.
It's a remarkable movie. And The Two Popes as well, which is a very different movie from City of God, is also kind of a bit of a cinematic feat, that it's just two people talking in a room, and it's incredibly compelling. They do really fun stuff with the camera. So yeah, it was really scary. It was very intimidating to shoot those days. But then I got there, and I don't know, as Mark Twain said, you live so many nightmares, but it's all in your head. It was great. It was fun. I had a blast doing it, and I worried for weeks and put my wife through that, and was so stressed out. And it ended up being pretty simple, to be honest, because Fernando was so trusting of the actors in the scene.
So at this point, you do not know what's to come. Is it safe to say that you don't know, or you do know at this point?
Me, Nate Corddry?
Yes, you, Nate Corddry.
I do know what is to come. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we're not going to ask you.
But Davey has no idea what's coming, right?
Davey doesn't know anything, really. Poor guy. So no, definitely. If there's one character, like if you're doing like a draft of the characters in the show for like, who has an idea of what's going on here and who John Sugar really is, David is the last pick. He's the sixth round Mr. Irrelevant pick, probably. Not the brightest bulb.
So you get scenes. The scenes with Anna Gunn are fantastic. She's playing your mom, and she's like this sort of crime boss. Like there's that vibe to it. Like Davey can do absolutely no wrong. You are a great man. You will be a great man. All that stuff. Tell me about those scenes with Anna.
I had never met her. So it's such a bizarre industry, because you walk in with all of this baggage. I mean, I was such a fan of hers because of her work on Breaking Bad. And so you have this like assumption of who this person is going to be. And it's also like, I don't know, the older I get and the more often that this happens, thank God, you sort of realize like, man, is this a peer? Or am I just like a sycophant who's sort of like nervously like approaching this person I admire? Or, man, am I in this world? It's certainly not. I haven't been, I don't have a career like hers and don't have awards on my wall, but the more it happens and the more you find yourself surrounded by people that you admire, I don't know, it helps build like your confidence, I think, as an actor. So working with her, again, before I met her, anxious. And then, of course, she's lovely, sweet, lovely, grounded, just like a Northwestern theater chick, basically, at her core. Really smart and thoughtful, had a lot of great questions, and just easy. And again, Fernando, like the environment on set was just warm. It was such warmth. And that comes from number one on the call sheet, and that's Colin Farrell. He sets the tone. Every lead of a show sets the tone of what it's like to be on set. Sometimes it's tense because they're anxious, they're insecure, they're worried. The stakes are very high for the star of a show. It's your face. People are judging the show, typically based on your performance sometimes. And some actors can come into a set like that and handle it and not worry about it and, water off a duck's back. And then other stars, it's scary and uncomfortable. And it makes it uncomfortable for everyone else. It's very rare when that happens, but I've been in those rooms. And this was the polar opposite. I mean, Colin is just a lad, just a great, kind, like just wanted to talk about the work. And again, it's sort of those pinch me moments when he's like, what about this? Should I do this word here? Should we change this? What do you think? I was like, I don't know, Colin Farrell. It's crazy that you're asking me this question. Wild. I woke up today and here I am, like collaborating on a scene, on a prestige television show with one of my favorite actors. I mean, anyone who's a Colin Farrell fan, like, you need to start with Tigerland. I think it's one of the first movies he made. Tigerland sort of established him as who he was in the beginning, but he was like, I think he's got sort of pigeonholed as this like handsome, debonair, like ladies man, because he was handsome and he dated pop stars, so he was in the tabloids. But underneath all of that is just like this character actor trapped in a beautiful guy's, head and body. But let's be clear. This is a very beautiful man. Sitting in like the being in the we had a brief rehearsal at Paramount for a couple of scenes, and I was just like, it's in this industry, it happens every so often, but you're just in the company of someone who is sort of like immortally beautiful, and I'm just like, God, what man, that is a beautiful person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I've seen interviews with him, and he's extremely down to earth, and that's what I just love about him so much. You know, very engaging, and actually in the interview, he was asking the interviewer questions and seemed so interested in the interviewer's life, which I thought was very charming.
By the way,
Not
I had
surprised.
dinner once with Colin Farrell. That's exactly what happened. Was Colin Farrell? I knew nothing more about Colin afterwards, but he knew everything about me because he was asking me questions all the time, which I felt like generous and special that this movie star wanted to know, right?
Most actors, you have to be, it's something you kind of can't teach, but unless you have a really good theater professor in college, this, I guess, I guess the simplest word is curiosity. You have to have like a real intense curiosity about the world around you, because it all is going to end up in your work. So the more curious you are about other people, the more curious you are about, why is the building that way? And why is that person behaving this way? And why is this way? And the more curious you are about just sort of the lived experience of being a person on planet Earth, like the better you're going to be as an actor. And so I'm not surprised to hear you say how curious he was in you, because he's probably always downloading information. It's always like the more he learns about the world around him, the better, more sort of intuitive actor he's going to be.
So what's the vibe on set? Like in between shooting scenes, do the actors hang out with one another? Do you purposefully not have anything to do with each other as an actor to kind of stay in character? Talk about that.
Very dependent on the scene, very dependent on the show. Some of the more intense scenes I had to do in my career were comedy scenes for a Chuck Lorre sitcom, the show called Mom, which was an Anna Faris and Allison Janney show. But because you did these dress rehearsals for the studio and the network and the writers and the creator, the stakes are high to make those jokes work. And the studio is there in their suits and ties, and they're not excited to laugh. It's not an environment that's like forgiving for laughter. And I was more nervous between takes on those scenes than I was in this. It just depends on the people that you're with, their level of confidence, and the environment that is built by the director and star, pretty much. But Fernando, I don't know. I've worked with a lot of wonderful directors in my career, but he might be my favorite. I don't know. There is a warmth to him, a generosity. That scene I went in going, oh my God, it's so long. I don't stop talking. And the amount of emotional...
Is this the Colin Farrell scene?
Yes, in the kitchen.
Yeah.
The emotional lift is big. It's really big. And he knew that. And so he lit the whole room before we got in there and said, the whole room is lit. So you can go, we're not going to block it. Just go in and be in the scene with Colin. Be in the scene and go wherever you want. We have 2 cameras going to follow you. Just don't cross the line where one camera can see the other camera. Just have that in the back of your mind. And if you do, who cares? We'll just do it again. So just be, and if you want to change a word, change a word. Just be in the moment. I was like, oh, thank fucking God. Thank God. Because with another director, that scene would have taken 6 hours to shoot, and there would have been a lot of setups and a lot of repeated patterns and trying to like stay in the moment. And he was like, just go. And after the first take, they called cut, and he was like, I think that's it. We'll do another, but I think we have it. And Colin came over and said, isn't this great? We already did it. You have one. It's over. Now after this, this is just all cream cheese. After this, like we're good. So I don't know, man. That certain sets are tense and uncomfortable, and this one was just a dream. And it was sad to walk away from this show when this contract ended. I wanted more.
So one of the things, it feels like the scene with Colin Farrell with Sugar is David's last confession. And you get to that last scene where he says, she's your sister. You were supposed to take care of her. And it feels like that really breaks Davey. Do I have that?
Yeah. He knows it, but it takes someone, I think, like John Sugar saying it to him for the sort of penny to drop in a more sort of intense way. He's been wrapped up in self forever. He has a mother who's telling him since the day he was born that he was the greatest thing since sliced bread. He has, millions of fans around the world. He's been celebrated and loved, and he can do no wrong. So when he's confronting Sugar and sort of himself that he's done this wrong, I think it's a big fall for him, because he's so used to being told that that everything is okay, that he's doing everything right, and that he's loved. And so to face that at the end of the day was crippling, I think, to him. But I was carrying, I was carrying my own sister in my own mind in that scene. I would before one of the takes, I looked at a picture of my sister before I sort of walked on the set, just to sort of have that in the back of my mind, just to sort of pull from if I needed it. I didn't, thankfully, because the writing was so good. But yeah, I think he finally makes this realization of who he is. Someone finally confronts him and says, like, "What? Tell me the truth." And he's a human being. He still realized the difference between right and wrong. And that leads to the next scenes, I think, him finally realizing who he is and his behavior and the costs that his behavior had.
Yeah, I would think it was somewhat of a relief to be able to unload, carrying this around for so long. And, you were outed, and it's like, well, there's nowhere to hide anymore.
That's a very smart take, because if you watch closely the scene before, it's a tiny scene, but it's a scene between Colin and Anna, and they're having a conversation, and I come in and say, "It's done. I'm ready. I'm ready." And the word I had in my mind during that scene was relief. It was like, okay, this is over. This can finally be over. I don't need to carry this in my back pocket anymore. So relief is the appropriate word, 100%.
So we have heard that there's this big, crazy twist in this show. It's out there. The kids on the street are talking about it. There's some crazy theories out there. Without giving, I don't want to know, right? But should we be prepared for crazy?
Well, I mean, part of the compelling part of the show is that you're watching this mystery fold out, this noir mystery shot beautifully in Los Angeles with a really compelling main character. And then you're watching this mystery of who John Sugar is parallel. And that's sort of like, that's happening on the show, but it's also like, it's the audience trying to figure out what is going on in these two different ways. And I wasn't sure if it was going to work when I first watched, because you don't watch them, I don't get the tapes until they're on Apple TV. And then I watched the first episode, and I thought, oh man, this is being laid out really elegantly. These little hints, these little misdirections, or not misdirections, all will be revealed very soon. But the director and the writers were really cleverly sort of laid out this very sort of just kind of placing it there, take a look, and then we're going to take it away. What was that?
Yeah.
Why is the camera's perspective from, boy, he's spending a lot of time, but what about, and then this is happening. Huh. And first I thought, oh, this is just going to frustrate. Audiences don't have the attention span to commit. They just want a story told. And the audience is smart enough to be able to do both things at the same time. And they want it. This is Apple TV. This is not television that you fold your laundry to. This is television that is challenging at times. And so it's the reveal is pretty spectacular. And I can't wait to see what you guys and the rest of the world thinks. It's a while.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, you are terrific on the show. This episode, you were just absolutely amazing. And one thing I want to ask you, when you're playing such a bad guy, in your actor head, do you think of him as a bad guy, or how do you think of him?
No, I don't think of him as a bad guy at all. He just has a certain He has a different background than I do. He has a different lived experience than I do. I don't see him as bad. There are evil characters that, people play, of course, that are without ethics or morals or, psychopaths or whatever. But no, I see him as just a human who is dealt a very specific set of cards and is doing the best he can, pretty much.
Awesome. Well, listen, you were great. The show is great. We are happy that we chose this one to watch along with. And thank you very much for coming on, Nate. We really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Steve Sue. Thank you so much. The compliment is there are dark days as an actor when things aren't going your way, and you have 50 auditions in a row where nothing works, and you keep getting told no. So when you get a compliment like that, I stuff it in my back pocket. I'm going to take it out again in about 6 months and use it again. So
awesome,
thank you
man.
so much. It's appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you. There you have it. There is episode 5, told by one of the stars, especially of this particular episode. He has a great arc, and it really culminates with his suicide, obviously, and a really great what?
We don't know. He still was breathing.
You think he's still alive?
I don't know. It wasn't definitive. It wasn't definitive.
Well, I mean, Anna Gunn is like on her knees with all this blood all over her.
But he's taken out without a cover over his head. I mean,
okay.
There's an IV. There's an IV there.
Yeah.
And he's on a gurney. So you don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Especially on this show, you definitely don't know. And I have a feeling this big twist, because of the way Sugar at the end of the episode says, "I have a secret," he says to Melanie.
Right.
I think we find out the secret in episode 6. That's what I'm guessing anyway.
How many episodes are there?
There are 8.
Okay.
So we're coming up on it.
Alrighty.
Yep. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the Culture Pop Podcast. Please subscribe on Apple and Spotify and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget, next week we will have watch-along episode number 6 of Sugar. Great seeing you, and we will see everybody next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.